Greetings, family. Welcome back to my channel. I have a short update for my subscribers about the Charlie Kirk shooting. Family authorities have released a video which shows the assailant scaling the wall of the campus building after the shooting. That's right, they actually caught a video of him on the roof after the shooting, and the video shows him climbing down the side of the building. He hobbled along the grassy area until he came to the sidewalk, and then he basically stood there, basically trying to appear calm, trying to appear to be one of the many passerbys that were walking along the sidewalk. And family, there's also now a clear video of his face. Actually, they showed this still shot of him wearing shades, wearing a baseball cap, and he was wearing this long sleeved black shirt with the American flag on the shirt. I am convinced that the African Americans that are now speaking up in support of Charlie Kirk are doing so for likes and shares. This is the only motivation that I believe would make them support Charlie Kirk, right? They would have to be woefully and perilously ignorant of anything that Charlie Kirk has said to actually show your support behind him, right? Now, the thing is, I think that black people are always expected to have some higher standard, some higher ideal than the rest of society. You know, when persons were trolling the death of Trayvon Martin, when persons were trolling the death of George Floyd and Sandra Bland, we didn't hear any outcry from these individuals against the trolls. We didn't hear them saying that, man, this is in poor taste, this is horrible, you individuals should be ashamed of yourselves. We didn't hear any of this kind of rhetoric coming from these individuals. But now that a person who has been openly opposing reparations, a person who basically said that black people should pull themselves up by their bootstraps after 400 years of slavery, it really makes me wonder um, what kind of sick deficit of thinking has now invaded the American society. You know, to my viewers and subscribers, I would really like to say that anyone that is openly supporting Charlie Kirk, anyone that is decrying the critics, is doing so for likes, is doing so for shares, right? There's no other motivation. These persons want to make some money, and this can be the only explanation for why they have so much emotional attachment to the death of Charlie Kirk, right? Charlie Kirk has demonstrated in numerous videos that if the shoe was on the other foot, he would be entirely insensitive, he would be heartless. I don't even think the death of a black activist would actually register with Charlie Kirk. I've seen footage of Charlie Kirk discussing the death of George Floyd, and in this footage, he has a very cold and callous outlook on the video of his death. Charlie Kirk actually was calling for Derek Chauvin, the killer of George Floyd, to be released from prison and to be pardoned by Donald Trump. Right? I believe that he was one of the most instrumental figures in these calls for Derek Chauvin to be pardoned. Right? Charlie Kirk did not support reparations for the slave trade. In another video which I've seen, Charlie Kirk can be heard saying that black people do not deserve reparations for slavery. He believes that black people should have had time enough for them to pull themselves out of the inequality that was created by white supremacy. So he also said that if he was to get on a flight today, well, not today, day before yesterday, if he got on a flight and he saw that the captain, or I mean, the pilot was an African American, that he would be questioning whether or not this individual had credentials, right? He was so known for being a white supremacist that even white Americans joined in coalition with black Americans to call him out, right? So I don't know why it is that when people get killed, we sometimes forget all of the dastardly things that they have been doing throughout their life. All right, Charlie Kirk was not a choir boy. Charlie Kirk actually believed that black people were given privileges that white Americans were not able to get, right? Despite the fact that for the last few decades, it has been clear that black people have been mistreated in America. Charlie Kirk believes that things like affirmative action were tantamount to being discriminatory against white Americans, right? So all of these things begin to paint a very vivid picture of who Charlie Kirk actually was, right? He was not a person who was a humanitarian. All of these people who are trying to portray him as being a family man, a humanitarian, are actually deluded individuals who are actually seeking butter biscuits from the white establishment, right? So while I am not celebrating the death of a person, right, I am certainly not um, showing any sympathy towards this situation because he actually had a very malicious outlook on black Americans. Anybody that would look at the George Floyd video and say that the cause of death was fentanyl or drug overdose is a very hateful, a very twisted, a very sick individual. Okay, and so I do not have any positive sentiments towards Charlie Kirk. I support reparations for the slave trade. I believe everybody who was affected by the slave trade should be paid for the crimes against our ancestors, right? We should be paid for the crimes that will be set on our ancestors. And we should also receive some kind of restitution for systemic inequality, right? But if you look at any of the videos of Charlie Kirk addressing um, these crowds of college students, it becomes abundantly clear that he is actually trying to make racial insensitivity seem cool. He's trying to make it seem trendy, right? And the only thing that is more disturbing than the statements made by Charlie Kirk is the fact that it actually resonated with crowds. When he spoke against George Floyd and he said that Derek Chauvin was unjustly convicted, he began to get cheers, he began to get support from the crowd. So, although Charlie Kirk is apparently a racist or was a racist, it seems to me that there's a large audience of young people who began to gravitate to his message and who actually feel the same way that he did, right? And so, in my opinion, family, what is taking place is a farce, right? Even the likes of the notorious genocidal maniac Benjamin Netanyahu have spoken up in support of him. All right, so if you got Benjamin Netanyahu on your side, you are clearly on the wrong side. You are on the wrong side of history. Okay, and so I sympathize with his mother and father I sympathize with his daughters and his wife who now have to fill this void that has been left by his absence. Right? We've all been there. We've all lost a loved one, and you know, we know that they are irreplaceable, and all we have basically is their memory to live off, or to basically remind us of them. But I think we have one less white supremacist in the world today. That is what my key takeaway is from this whole situation. There's one less person who will speak against justice for slavery, who will speak against justice for the numerous individuals who have been victimized by the system of white supremacy, right? I don't believe it's trendy. I don't believe it is a positive thing to actually have persons minimize the plight of African Americans, minimize the plight of Africans globally, right? And so I would like to end this video by saying that Charlie Kirk was actually one of the most controversial and polarizing figures in the American society. And his death clearly shows that there's a rift in the white nationalist movement. A tweet has recently resurfaced from a friend of Charlie Kirk that actually said Charlie Kirk feared the Israeli government. Charlie Kirk believed that if he actually spoke against any of the things that Israel was doing, that Israel was going to kill him. This is a fact. This is actually still on Twitter. Charlie Kirk believed that if he spoke against the state of Israel, that Benjamin Netanyahu would have ordered him killed, right? And I would like to make a few short statements about this assassination and the possible ties to Israel. All right, there's a lot of murmuring right now about the possible connection between the Israeli Mossad and the killing of Charlie Kirk, right? This kind of inexplicable violence in a political setting makes no plausible sense, in my opinion. There's no reason for it to have happened in the way that it happened, unless there was a larger agenda at play. Okay, and the individual actually looks like one of the Israeli Mossad. If you look at the photo of the person that they claimed killed Charlie Kirk, he actually looks like an Israeli person cosplaying as an American, right? And he was able to blend in because it was an all white crowd, and persons didn't suspect him of committing any crimes, right? There's this whole notion that only persons of color are dangerous. Only persons of color would carry out these types of acts. But history has actually highlighted the fact that this is not the case. Um, the lion's share, I would say the great majority of these types of acts have been carried out by white nationalist extremists in America. Okay, and so I think the black community is completely innocent in this case, and we have a right to actually voice our concerns and actually hold Charlie Kirk accountable, even posthumously. Okay, let me know your thoughts about this matter. Do you believe that the killer was from Israel? Do you believe that the killer is part of the renegade faction of the conservative movement? Okay, let me know your thoughts in the comments below about all these dynamics. One love.